solid advice.
I learned the hard one. Realignment conference polio just for the I'm sorry. Is your realignment conference polio just for this meeting?
No, this is my like default folio for like 15 years since I've been to that conference years ago. It's like a pre-trial thing, I think.
Wasn't it like a year or two after realignment they did that? I went to one like the first year that I was here, and there was a bunch of out of county. Don Wow was down there, and it was interesting. And Jerry Brown spoke. No notes, nothing recorded. Just talked for like an hour. It wasn't the same. All right, it's 11 o'clock. So I've got everyone here knows each other, so I'm not gonna. But we have public defender, missing EAs, second.
I think they're coming.
That's the same difference.
Yeah.
Oh, there's justice. Got EA, human services, police. We're missing court, and then the sheriff's. So we do have every forum. I know. Have two sets of minutes that need to be approved, right?
Yes, we do.
From January 22nd and February 11th. And I think those were in the packet. So if anyone would like to make a motion to approve those either together or separately, that'd be great. Don't have any.
Am I on the, I'm the voting member when Alex is here, correct?
Correct.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for
Both of them.
both of them.
All right.
I know it ended, thank you.
Second.
Motion.
Okay. Any discussion? Corrections, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from January 22nd, February 11th, say aye. Any abstentions? Everyone said aye, so we'll just go with that. All right, motion passes. Public comment, we don't have any public on here that I can see. I'm gonna skip to number 6, just so we get that out of the way. So Innovation Fund. So I got some information from Angie, she's not in the office today, but she kind of modified the form that I think you guys worked on. Yeah, and Angie worked on. And so there's a couple of questions plus just some updates on the funding. So the balance, the expected balance at the end of 25-26, should all the expenses be realized, although the community fund violence has gone.
Yes.
Has ghosted us.
Yes.
So it might be higher than this because they have kind of disappeared relative to communicating with us. And I know that we've reached out to them a couple of times.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten any invoices from the bills.
So balance 163,728 and her estimate of 2627 revenue, because she didn't see all the, it's a rough estimate because she didn't see all the realignment revenue, but 35,687, so close to about 200K would be the balance. Right? And so the discussion that we have is one, if we're going to continue to put it out the way that we did. And with that, there was some discussion last time about we had taken county departments out. And if I remember correctly, the reason being is that they can apply or they can ask for funding through the regular funding process. So we limited it to community-based organizations located in Nevada County that provide services to justice involved populations. And so if we want to change that or any of the other things around this, now it's time for that discussion.
Changing it now, like any way, shape or form.
Well, because I think there was well, yeah, but I think there was a discussion. We set aside, I believe, 40,000. So it would be in the budget. But we hadn't set out like how we were going to have people come in and apply for those things or request funds from that fund. One of the discussions in the last budget thing was, or the last budget meeting was about an innovative project of a county department or a county agency. Like, would they apply through this process, or should we allow them to apply through this process, or should that be through the budget process? Essentially, should this be limited to CBOs or should it expand?
So last time we had two proposals that were new, both coming from existing CCP members. So we had Alex's proposal around, we'll draw a blank on the terms she used, but Ernesto, and then we had a vets program project coming from David West's shop. I had, if you recall, withdrawn the vets proposal and made the suggestion that those types of new programs follow sort of an innovation model as a new thing where we can then evaluate, is this something we want to incorporate into ongoing CCP rather than like a snap decision. And now we've created an ongoing, like we did with Alex's program, a potentially ongoing allocated thing. Do we want to have more process around evaluating new things through something like innovation? So I would certainly like move towards that if there's support, and then push the vets proposal towards innovation.
So you're saying funnel all that into innovation government or not, right?
Any of us have a new idea for a program rather than it's like just ad hoc bringing it to the budget cycle, like apply for this structured.
I don't know, I think that's fine. Then what I would say then what we should probably do though is, right, currently we have 40,000 set aside for that, right?
Right.
And I think if we're gonna be doing that, we should. I mean, personally, I don't know that we should have a budget for innovation, especially when you look at the law and the way it was passed. It should just be a case by case while we're looking at our budget annually and saying, hey, is this a great program that fits? And can we afford to do it?
Well, the point of this is because there is a carve out in the legislation for innovation. And so this was that carve out where from all the funds that get pooled up, put into this.
And then it goes back to what we were talking about as innovation, a 1 year funding or more of a sustained funding. Correct, because innovation would be a 1 year.
Correct. Yeah, and I would also say that the value, I mean, that's something we'll discuss in a minute regarding the strategic plan, like the valuation process or however you want to phrase that, like shouldn't be limited to just innovative funds. That evaluation process should be applied to everything that gets funded.
The concern I have about that, is that if there was a project that was a county-based project that was innovative and was actually like, yes, let's bring this in. This is a proven program, good idea, all that kind of thing. The innovation budget itself is so small and can be eaten up so quickly. So would it potentially limit a really good project that could come in? Because if it's just in that innovation, if that was the only account that could be tapped for that particular thing, that couldn't be fully funded. So most bigger programs aren't going to be able to go at that 40,000 or,
So that's what, I worded it wrong there, because that's what I was asking for innovation. I think it's great if that's like a 1 year, and then if it seems like if Ryan's program or if Alex's program works awesome, it starts in innovation, but then it progresses into a different funding account through CCP. So you have the 1 year innovation kickoff. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, except even with that 40,000, that might not be enough to get the grant up even going, with depending on the scope of the program.
Suggestion, or I think I made last time, there was some discussion around, we typically underspend or we get more revenue than we anticipated. And so like we could potentially use unexpended funds from CCP to enhance the amount of funding that's available through innovation. So you could have larger projects.
Yeah, this is just the statutory percentage. And why it's so high, even though the number fluctuates, is because we hadn't done it for a while and it kind of built up. But there's nothing that says that we couldn't have like an account, called innovation. I mean, not from the accounting perspective, but just from like the visual perspective of having an innovation fund where we say, a percentage of fund balance or a number out of fund balance or out of the annual budget or whatever goes in there in addition to that statutory amount.
And you said that there's a carve out in law for the innovation fund. It doesn't say how much or percentage wise of what's supposed to go into that, or
Just
just,
guys, I can't remember off the top of my head. It's
Percent.
It's relatively small year over year.
well, 10% would be huge, so a lot more than 40.
10% of like, not the,
A smaller pot, another
Yeah.
pot.
It's like, it's not very much. Like we budgeted $1,700 for security realignment.
Okay, and that's the,
it pulls from all the.
and that's the minimum for the carve out, we could go higher, is that what it's saying?
Well, I mean, we can budget
Whatever we.
however we want to budget. I mean, that's another discussion that we need to have, because we did talk about having kind of a funding, a budget policy, and maybe kind of a subgroup to think about those things moving forward. So yeah, I mean, that could be in that discussion of like, we want to carve out this amount for innovation. This is just the mandated amount that we have to do.
Gotcha, okay.
Suggestion last time was really coming from an attempt at fiscal prudence. Like, do we just spend more than what we're anticipating bringing in because we feel like we always end up having more money than we think and build sort of a structural deficit? Or do we put new things to a more structured thing that's time limited where we can evaluate whether it's effective? And if it is it worth either trimming what we have in our sort of year over year budget, or can we afford to incorporate it into our year over year? Because it is gonna, like, once you add something to your core budget, it's sort of tough to walk back from that. But if you have something where that's the expectation from the start, it makes sense to me. It still makes sense to me.
So you're proposing the latter.
Correct, where
Yeah.
like we could use residual funds to add on to the whatever innovation fund is the minimum.
Doesn't that would mean removing the cap, 40,000, right, annual?
We could have a cap still, like if we don't want to be totally. But
I'm okay with it being totally open, just because it doesn't mean we're spending it. It means we have to bring it here and everybody's gonna discuss it and vote on it, so. We all do budgets regularly, and I would just hate for there to be, especially if we're bringing in the government. So if we're bringing government proposals into the innovation, which I think is probably a good idea. Any proposal is gonna be well over $40,000 when we go, even if you're having one employee, it's gonna be 100 to, every one of us, so.
the Vets proposal was 40,000, but I take your point, like. If
Yeah.
it's a program, if it involves a full-time staff member, it's gonna be well over. 40,000.
And if it makes sense, then we shouldn't be limited based on where we limit ourselves. So,
Yeah, and so the two things for today, I mean, one is we did budget 40,000, so we have to decide what we're gonna do with that 40,000. The other piece is, I think, like, for this to work, obviously, there's lots of questions around it, like, we have to build a framework, like, if you were funded before this date, does that mean you're grandfathered in and you're no longer an innovative program, or does that mean, like, how does that look relative to, what's innovation, what's not, like, have some sort of at least loose definition of what that means, just so it's not like, behavioral health lost funding for someone that traditionally provided services to this person but never asked for money, but now they do. Is that innovative, or is that,
I would.
is that continued funding?
I don't know how we would ensure this, but I would say it's not something for sort of county core services any more than we would be funding a nonprofit's core services. It's for like a new program that speaks to evidence-based practices or sort of strategic planning components of the 6.
So first off, with the 40,000 we already carved out. You would want to, I think the easiest thing to do would be to send out this request for funding, and if we decide that we want just to change who's eligible, like who's the eligible entity, like, we could just change that one line in the form and send it out and make a decision on how we're going to award those things. And then, not to push this down the road, but as we talk about like a budget policy or a funding policy or procedure or framework or whatever you want to call it, kind of nail down those specifics. So, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So I just want to go over it one more time, just so I know what's in my, I know we can't vote on it now because it's not on the agenda anymore, right? So,
That's on Innovation Fund discussion.
so is everybody kind of saying the same thing where it makes sense for the innovation fund should be a one-time fund for a pilot program, not an existing program of any organization, nonprofit or government organization, or pretty much anything that wants to come, innovative idea. And we're talking about removing the gap of 40,000, which means we just have to be responsible with our budget.
We budgeted for 40,000 this year, so I think we're kind of locked in. Are we kind of amendment, I guess?
We can do a budget amendment just on a side letter, right? Which I don't know that that's, have we had our
I
innovation?
don't have Andrew here to kick me under the table, so. I'm looking at Georgette,
How that relates to the county budget piece of it as well, because we have, it hasn't been to the county yet, right?
Yeah.
We have our budget process coming up. But just in terms of the process piece, not on that part, deal with the budget amendment later if we need to. I'm nervous about it being completely uncapped. I think there should be some relationship to like how much extra funding beyond what was anticipated ends up in the prior fiscal year or something like that. Because I feel like, especially the bigger of us, like HHSA could eat up all the AU 109 funds and sheriff could. And so like having some connection to, we have more than we expected to have in our budget. And now we're gonna roll that over to innovation, sort of how I conceived it.
I do think it should be looked at annually, obviously, when we're doing the budget. I mean, we're anticipated to have 200,000 in the balance. So at least we have an idea, like, so if we're just putting in the growth part, I mean, that could be small or that could be a little bit bigger, but it won't grow that much. But we do have that 200,000 estimated.
It seems like in sending out the communication, it's beneficial to have a cap amount so that people have expectations around it. If my suggestion would be trying to channel Angie a little bit, but if this group would hear the applications that come back, and if they were higher than the cap at that point, the CCP could consider whether they wanted to do like increase the 40,000 or not, based on the applications. And I think the county or probation could do a budget amendment once the budget is adopted, right? So you adopt it with the 40,000 and then after, because it would be coming out of that CCP special revenue. So it's not general fund or anything like that. That would be nice.
So you're saying a soft cap to 40,000, like it should remain, like the policy would say it should remain at 40,000 or under,
Well,
but they could go over?
Well, my understanding is what Jeff is asking, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but is we usually send out a notification to the community, that document there, to enter applications for the local innovation fund, and I think that is helpful to have a cap number in there for applicants to have an idea of what they're,
Yeah,
like the.
that makes sense to me. I guess where I come from on this for CCP, I mean, I'll tell you just where I think it should be. I think we should have a lot more of these innovation and nonprofits where the money should be going. Just my personal belief, I think the law, when you read it, it's kind of says it's supposed to be going that way. So I'm for removing the cap, and then if the sheriff's program, for example, if they put in for a program, it's almost not even worth putting in for 40,000. You know, it would be a program that's going to be substantially higher. Or your office, like if they wanted to hire a special attorney or something, I think that when we're talking about $40,000, some nonprofits, that's going to be a decent amount, but any big program, that's not going to scratch the surface. And I think we have the potential to be having some great programs that should be funded through here that we won't ever hear. And I don't think that we would fund them, but if somebody comes in and says, hey, here's an excellent idea, that's gonna cost this much money. Right now, we're limiting ourselves by starting at $40,000. That's, I would like to take the cap off, and then we all as adults hear any proposal that comes to us and go, this is great, how do we make it work, how do we fit this in the budget? If that makes sense, and you will buy some that are, somebody wants to, I don't know, something crazy, and then you have to say, yeah, we're not gonna budget it. But I think that we're limiting ourselves on what we're going to hear. That could be excellent programs from the county.
And I think one of the ideas on the cap, like historically, there have been shifts since, changes in Medi-Cal and stuff like that. I think CCP used to fund a lot more, like in the treatment realm, stuff that wasn't funded by Medi-Cal. And then once there were shifts in Medi-Cal, then those things were paid from other places. But I do see the point of like at least having some sort of framework around the funding amount, because I don't know, but I could see like just a ton of requests coming in with ridiculous amounts or high amounts that we just know right off the bat that we wouldn't be able to fund. And it seems like it might be a waste of time for them and for us to solicit them to get those like $300,000 asks or something if it doesn't have some sort of framework to it.
But at the same time, we might get that the first year or two, but it's gonna have, people are gonna realize the culture pretty quick of they're not gonna spend $300,000. Or I just also being responsible with these funds, I think that we should be giving the public an opportunity to ask for $300,000. And then if we just can't fund it because it's not great, then we don't fund it. But I'll say 40,000, I think is way too low. If we do put a cap of some type, 40,000 is very, very low.
And that was based on just the expenditure of the innovation funds, trying to keep that going. Not the overall CC.
I think to some extent, it only makes sense to increase it somewhat because if the government entities that would traditionally come in through the other route, since we've had the CCP requests, if that door is getting shut to that sense, if it's coming in the other way, it's got to be increased, right? So it may not be an overall increase in, we're saving it on those other requests that like the vets and stuff that were coming in that other way. So it would make sense that we have to increase it at least a little bit. I agree that you got to cap it someplace, but maybe there's some kind of ability to, we see a really good promising program to go, okay, we want to really fund this, we want to give this a shot in Nevada County.
And I think last time it was more so we had more programs. Yeah, they met the cap, but there was more programs than there was total funding. So that could also be an option of like, okay, we're going to fund 3 programs at 40,000 versus 1 or something, But either way, if we're going to get someone, or whether it be a public or private entity, started close to the fiscal year, we got to get this moving. So,
Well, I think we're all in agreement to at least increase it, maybe not move the cap. Is that? I mean, 'cause I wouldn't be opposed to just increasing that. I would like to remove the cap, but if there's a middle ground, I'm not opposed to just increasing it. So we're not kicking this down the road again. We can make a motion. Does anybody have any problem with that?
Removing the cap or a little.
So I would like to remove the cap, but I don't think I'm the only one on that. So if we just voted to have I think most of us though agree that 40,000 is too low. Do we have a cap we could agree on for this year and explore that and go again, instead of kicking this down the road, like you said, Jeff, to the next meeting again? What would be a cap that we're comfortable with?
Jeff, can you just say again what the amount in the innovation fund is?
expected at the end of the year would be 163,728.04. And then the estimate of the revenue is 35,687. So
200?
that's the guess, is 200. The estimate.
Comfortable with a cap of 200, and then we can talk about budget amendment in the future, so that that's not just,
Just to clarify though, that would use all of the money. If
Right.
like else.
But we're talking about potentially using this as a mechanism to plan fully spend the extra money that comes into CCP rather than spending it from fund balance during a normal.
So beyond the local innovation fund to tap into the main budget where
For future cycles, but this year we'd have 200,000.
And I mean, if I'm hearing everyone correctly, if we capped it at 200,000, doesn't mean we have to fund 200,000. I mean, we could still have this discussion, but oh no, we're gonna be out of money. This one seems like it's a good one and it's 50,000 or something.
And we could change it next year if it,
But yeah, because I mean, we will need to still discuss, like, what metric are we using of like, is this a good program? Is this something we want to continue to fund? Like all those things, so.
Yeah, everything would still have to come to us for approval. So 200,000 is just, it gives us more freedom to fund it. It's great.
All right, so I'm hearing two things. One, change it to open it to not just CBOs, but also to government agencies, right? And then two, raise the max funding. Someone gonna make a motion?
So I'll make a motion to raise the max funding available to 200,000 and open it to. So verbiage on that. Any entity, any organization?
Just say, make the motion, one of your nonprofits. Probably can't apply.
That's fine. I mean, well, I just wouldn't be able to vote, right?
I mean, we'd have to cross that bridge.
Yeah.
Who scores the application, so we're all spending.
Okay. Let's leave that open for you.
I get it, yeah. I mean, that's fair. I have a bunch, so, yeah, that's, any entity. Is that how we word it? Any,
Just cross that out because it says eligible entities for this opportunity include local community-based organizations. So we could, and then the minimum is must be a community-based organization. We can just leave in must provide services to justice of all populations.
Yeah, for that account. Foster account provision.
That's my motion.
Unintended consequences of it.
Right, so did you capture that or?
Somewhat. Motion to raise the cap to 200,000.
I can read it out there, right? You got it? Oh, did you cross it out?
Well, I crossed out the things we were getting rid
That's
of.
what I mean. So I make a motion to increase the cap for the innovation fund to $200,000 annually and to remove eligible entities for this opportunity include local community-based organizations and to remove must be community-based organizations located in Nevada County for our guidelines.
Can I get a second? Those in favor say aye. Opposed, any abstain? Motion carries. All right, so the next piece of this is the way that it's set right now, or the way that Angie filled this out was she had funding requests due May 15th. Notice is sent May 22nd, which is a pretty quick turnaround. And funding period July 1 through June 30. So do we want to keep it like that? And if so, we'll have to schedule a meeting to kind of go over those and quick turnaround. So is that okay with everybody?
What's the turnaround time again?
Funding request due May 15th. Notice is sent May 22nd. And it wasn't like, it's not like reading a full grant proposal or RFP. They were pretty quick and succinct. Yeah.
Would allow a little more time to bring them back in for a final presentation and to answer questions, or we just agree based on their proposal to give them.
You tell me, that's what. Is that what you want to do?
I would suggest a little more time there to plan for a final interview of sorts.
Okay. Maybe I'll just cross, I mean, I can just cross out notices sent. I can just leave it funding requests and then we can see how many, what we get, you know.
So if multiple of us have proposals, and we need to have like a separate committee to score the applicants. That'll take some time.
So I'll cross that out. All right, any other questions on the innovation fund? Anything I'm missing? Chit chat on that? Um. Annual plan, so we had discussed continuing to do some sort of annual plan or report out. I sent some samples. I mean, this was a while back. Along with the BSCC letter that says that we no longer have to do an official plan that we send to BSCC because they no longer fund that process. And so I just wanted to put this back on here for us to think about what we want that annual plan to look like. Most of the ones that I've seen from other counties look like these are the programs we fund. These are the outcomes, or some of them do a cost benefit analysis or different things of relative to we funded this, why we funded it, and this is the result of what happened after we funded this. And that's kind of their annual plan. And so I think the discussion is around like, one, I think we already decided that we want to do something, but like, what does that look like? And we don't have to decide that today, but it's one thing that we need to keep on the radar and maybe even have some sort of extra discussion around, but that might also include, like I said, it didn't show up. It didn't make it on the agenda, but the idea of the funding budget policy type thing. So I'm gonna set a meeting at some point after budget season's over, after people are done going through that process. For us to look at that, how things are funded, how we decide, all those sorts of things, and we can set up either some sort of policy or rubric or whatever we want to do in kind of deciding of how things get funded. One of the things I said before is a lot of like when you look at our plan initially, it's like, you know, from 2011 till now, a lot of things have changed. Things that we thought were going to happen didn't happen, or vice versa. So just re-looking at that whole thing and how we decide to do this. And I think that kind of fits into our strategic plan of how we move forward. So that's kind of the next step. I'm having one of our staff is collecting information from other counties of how both of like the breakdown of their funding and their plans, so that we have that information in like a single spot, and trying to kind of create a spreadsheet of what that looks like, so that we have a point of reference of what other counties are doing as well. I'm not saying we have to match that specifically, but at least we have some idea of what's out there.
Jeff, would that be a good time also to kind of lay out, I know there's been talk about with the, specifically to the innovation fund, but I think in a broader spectrum, like kind of what the format of the reporting back to the CCP for the agencies of like, if the programs are effective, right? So like some kind of layout of what that looks like. Is there an ending year kind of prior to the end of the fiscal year kind of report out of the different programs that the CCP funds, and how many, you know, some of the data and the outcomes of those programs? We've talked about that, but it hasn't really been clarified of exactly what that would look like.
Yeah, and so those, I mean, that's gives me the idea that if the funding request for those ongoing things is done in a specific way, that might even just be able to roll up into an annual plan or an annual like report out. Because there are some of those components there, and that could change, because that form was just a mechanism that hadn't existed just to create something to have people request the funding, because before that, it really wasn't anything. It was just we'd sit in the room and say, I want this, I want that, and we'd move forward. So that was just that mechanism. But we could use, like you're saying, if it was an ongoing funding and it had those outcomes or whatever on there, could roll that into the like report out for the end of the year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so. And this one seems almost, I don't want to say simple, but shouldn't just everybody that's getting money have to submit almost like a grant? What you did with your money, how it was effective? Couldn't we just do it that way then?
Well, that's kind of what the form says, but we haven't really reported out on that information or kind of standardized, like.
Yeah.
It's at different levels, like some people put a whole bunch of data and stuff into it, some people don't. And it's kind of like, here's the funding request, here's what I did last year, but there's not a whole lot of discussion around like, was that effective or impactful or whatever.
I think that, yeah, it's a pretty simple concept, but I think that to get that, we have to provide how we want and what the parameters are. That I don't think that that's really been established yet, you know, so people aren't kind of trying to make it up as they go, make it as easy as the format of the reporting back to the CCP as it possibly can be.
So Jeff, I'm sure you've seen them, but sometimes they do those annual reports where everybody doesn't file back in and then they do spend some money. It's a consultant that puts together a booklet that's handed out the entire, everybody that wants to see where their CCP funds are going. And it is a little, the ones I have seen are a little bit hectic because everybody reports a little bit different, but it does name each program, how much they got, and then where their, you know, their returns on it. And I know they were fairly simple to submit the information, but then it did cost a little bit of money for somebody to put together the nice little magazine report back.
Yeah, I've sent out some of those. I mean, like I said, some are more standardized than others, but yeah, it's simple of like, we spent X amount of dollars, this many clients were served with those amount of dollars. And you know, like this was the outcome of those people that went through this.
Put pictures in there, crap. Yeah. It looked nice.
So you're saying you want your picture on
Not mine.
Would this be a good opportunity to maybe form an ad hoc committee to like make a recommendation or look at whatever research they've done? Recommendation that's still.
Yeah, and I was getting to like, I don't know if that's a combo of like the data group getting back together and fiscal staff or, you know, because that would be the people that would be probably doing the work of compiling that information to see what's feasible. Kind of reporting out, but that's kind of what I was thinking, but. You know, feedback coming.
I think that's a good idea. Have a subcommittee and report back on some ideas, and then the group could vote on the best way to do an annual plan. I don't know, just,
Do you have all these examples kind of still locked and loaded for the recent out to the group to take a look at?
I got some links. Do we see that subgroup as being the same subgroup that puts together some sort of budget framework, or is that a different group? I mean, I see it as like, I guess that group could put together the budget framework and then bring it back here for the voting members to discuss. Or do you think that's a different discussion?
I think the budget is different than the data report out piece. Seems like CEO should be involved in the budget piece of it. So,
raise your hand.
I was stretching. I am not a speaking member of this group.
Welcome to. All right, so not hearing anything else, then those will be two separate groups, so. Aaron, I'm guessing you'll want to be included in that.
Of course. I've got nothing else to do.
Well, we can wait a couple weeks.
I might just offer that like numbers are numbers are numbers, but if you want the numbers to support the mission and kind of the direction or policy of this particular funding source, it would make sense to have some coordination between outcomes and numbers. So whether that's two separate groups to start and then they come together and form one recommendation, or this group, kind of looks at both sides and makes some decisions, that doesn't really matter so much as there needs to be a clear connection between what it is that you're doing and how much it costs to do that, and are you successful based on the measures that you're identifying as what you're tracking.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of ties into, the reason it's been several years or a couple of years now since we did the strategic plan of having that idea of like, okay, if the state comes to us or someone comes to us, we can tie this strategic plan in the things that we've included in there to the budget and the outcomes within the budget. But I think we've kind of swayed away from that a little bit, but the things that we put in that strategic plan is that, I'll read a couple of things here. The mission of the CCP is to collaboratively, I can't even say that word, ensure a safe Nevada County by reducing and preventing crime through evidence-based, cost-effective policies and programs. We believe in creativity and innovation, collaboration, and mutual commitment to the group to improve a system in a fiscally responsible manner, being open, honest, sharing ideas, and being respectful, and continuously letting purpose drive strategy. And we said that we will be data-driven in decision-making and evaluating outcomes, improve community engagement and participation in the CCP, ensure safe Nevada County by reducing and preventing crime, and improve overall quality of life in Nevada County. Then we have a laundry list of goals. But I think those things are a good framework for our budget discussion. Should us still ring true as to how we want to operate the CCP. That makes sense? So all set, I'll put it out a little ways. So like I said, since budget season is going on right now, for us to have that discussion, maybe that's just the next meeting is that, instead of all this other stuff. I put strategic plan on here. I'll just send it back out. Like I said, there's a laundry list of things on here that have kind of gone by the wayside. So that folks can look at that and we can have that discussion again. Part of that goes into the data group because a lot of that has to do with them. We currently do not have an analyst, so we're lagging behind a little bit in some of that stuff. So in the interim, I was going to talk, I have talked to Paul, but maybe Paul or someone else in the data group can still set time up to meet when we have these discussions around CCP data. I know that Brendan had done some report outs and there were some discussions on things that we should be collecting and reporting out to the CCP. I don't want it to totally drop off with him not being here. So maybe, I don't know if someone else wants to take lead or if Paul, you want to try to organize that.
Try to dig up what's done before, start there.
Do we know who the members of there was a data subgroup? We know who those members were, Chief?
Right there, Leslie, I think. I think Andy from Health and Human Services, is that correct?
Someone from.
Yeah.
Was it Andy? Data subgroup.
She gave me the.
Okay.
That would be what I would think of, so.
It was Andy.
Yeah, I can see what he shared out. I've been with the sheriff's office for almost 2 years and we only had one meeting that I was part of. Yeah, I think I had like 2. They were quarterly.
Be fair, yeah, I think it fell out before he was when he was still here.
What?
So to be fair, I think some of the things fell out when he was still here. Yeah.
So we'll try to get that group back together because I think having that group and then tying it to those other discussions about the annual plan and the budget group, like the group has to be in place to do those things. Email communication, that was just, I wanted to clarify for most things, not like the public meeting stuff, like when there's different changes, I'll send it out to the 7 exec members. And if they need to send it out to whoever they need to send it out to, well, not the 7, I'll send it out to the 14, I guess, the backups too. Just because I was getting a lot of emails of, oh, could you send it to this person? And then I'd send it to this person. Can you send it to this person? And it's got to where I was just shooting emails all over the place. So I'll send out that information to them, and the expectation is that someone else needs it in their agency or organization, ship it on to whoever they need to.
On the invite, calendar invite.
There's everyone that's signed up via the website. For like
So
50
you're
or
the
60.
executive members and delegates. and Lots of other members, some are
I can
community
send that
members, some
out.
are, yeah.
So the documents you're talking about sending just to this group and our delegates would be all the documents related to CCP or just a subset of them?
No, like when we're doing a meeting and we have the attachments and stuff, but it's like, hey, I got this information from CSAC or something like that. Like I'll send that out to you guys. Right?
Anything we're talking about here, it seems like the people who are on the invite list. should-
Yeah, that's like people that have signed up for notifications, whatnot. And I mean, we've made a lot of progress because up until like 3 or 4 years ago, this was not a public meeting at all. So I do want to recognize the progress that we've made.
Right now, we're really only sending agendas to the larger extended.
And like the attachments with the agendas that come in, right? Or no?
If there are attachments that, yeah, we've discussed that we're sending out.
Well, that's 3 years ago.
All right, any questions? All right, got 15 minutes left. Any roundtable? Anything else that anyone wants to bring up? Given that I can hear the fan spinning, I'm guessing. Anything from anybody up on the screen? Barry, do you have a witty anecdote for us?
I do not.
All right, thanks.
This one.
Okay.
I just wanted to let the group know that I might do some cleanup on the meeting invitations going forward because we have had all of the quarterly meetings connected as one series. And there are just some logistical awkwardness about that, them all being connected. So I'm gonna probably separate them. So just a heads up that you may get some cancellations of current series and then new meetings set up, and then we'll keep each meeting occurrence a little bit cleaner.
Just hit remove, just hit accept, basically.
Yes, exactly. And if it gets confusing, feel free to message me.
Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second. Second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, 11:47.
I did it.
You guys must.